How to fuel for a triathlon. It's such a massive topic. I'm going to try and break it down for you just to follow some simple steps. Let's go. It's so important. It can make or break your event. You know, you spend so much training for these long events, especially ultras and marathons, as well as Ironman or even a middle distance triathlon. So 75% of athletes are getting it wrong. That's crazy. 3/4 of the field are getting it wrong, and there's so much online about this topic. Of those 25%, 1 in every 2, they're winging it and hoping for the best. There's some basic principles that everyone should get right. In triathlon, it's known as the fourth discipline: swim, bike, run, and nutrition. Some people pay a little bit of attention to it. It's constantly evolving, thanks to Precision Hydration as well. All the articles on their website, their knowledge hub, all free to use, all around fuel, hydration, caffeine, and pretty objective, not trying to push the marketing side. We've managed to, or the guys have managed to link sports science with sports nutrition and with the athlete in mind and give some real life applications. So I would definitely look onto precisionhydration.com and have a look at their resources there. Okay, so there's around 6 factors that I would get you to think about most importantly for whatever you're doing. If it's biking or running, it's all pretty much the same. So the most important thing is how long, or the distance, mainly duration is key. How long you're going to be out there. If it's a 1-hour race versus a 3-hour race, as you can imagine, it's a completely different fueling strategy, energy systems, demands on the body. The next thing is temperature. This can have a huge impact on sweat rate, which of course would increase the fluids. A lot of my other posts you might have come across all around drinking, hydration, hyponatremia, drinking too much water. It's really important you nail these basic principles around fluid consumption when the temperature goes up and also when the temperature goes down. The science all reveals it's done a full circle back to thirst, and that's quite critical to understand. Actually, thirst is a big indicator of, believe it or not, how much we should drink. Okay, so we've got something inbuilt. The other factor is, what are the demands of the race? Like, that's the most important thing. So are we going short? I mentioned briefly earlier. Are we going long? Is it really easy? Or is it really intense? If you just want to complete, it's probably going to be easy all day. If you're trying to beat your time from last time you did it, it's probably going to be more on the severe, intense demands. So let's follow some principles around that to get that improved. The next thing you've got to think about is the terrain. So more so for running, because if you're on a really hilly, mountainous course for an ultra run, it makes eating and drinking quite a lot different if you're on a flat gravel road. Same with cycling. If you're on a 20 to 30k climb, which in the Alps or Pyrenees in Europe, it's a little bit harder to chew food, for example, and then you've got a long descent where you won't be able to take the hands off the handlebars. So making sure you get your timing right of the terrain is crucial. So hilly versus flat, because it's all about opportunity to fuel. Okay. And then probably the most important choice you're going to have to make is, do I go with solids? Do I use liquids? Do I use semi-solids? Or a combo of above? Okay. So this is where the magic happens, and the most important thing is you've got to trial it over and over in training. You've heard a lot of people say that, but it's really true. So you might not know the answer if it's going to be a combination of all those. I know what I advocate as a coach, certainly for long distance events, is to separate your fuel. So I get my athletes to drink liquid hydration, hypotonic drink, so that you're not getting calories from that, and get most of the fuel from a solid and perhaps a semi-solid, which is like a gel. Limit that limit the gels for a long duration event due to fatigue of the palate and sweet fatigue. So as the race goes on, we generally wean off the solids and move towards liquids. So let's talk about solids for a bit. This is pretty much a compact way to get something that satiates you into your gut, but remember, it takes a lot more process to break down. I personally prefer solids because it makes me feel satiated, and I actually like enjoying eating something, whether it's on a bike. Of course, when you are running, it makes things difficult. So it could be a choice of bar, anything like a banana. Practicality isn't always going to work, but grabbing a banana on the fly from an aid station on the bike is quite easy. Now that's from the solids, and they can also be in the case of what's called chews or shot blocks. Something that gives you a sense of eating a real solid bit of matter, which means you're going to feel a bit more satiated. Something may even have a little bit of protein in, which I prefer something with nuts that's compact, and it gives me energy for the long events, 9-10 hours. Liquids would be what's called a hypertonic drink, so your energy drinks. Now, they have their place, 6% carb solution. Some of them have a little bit of sodium in them. The idea is for short, intense 90-minute efforts, maybe up to 2-hour races. That's maybe your distance duration. Then a liquid carb drink would absolutely be a great idea to fuel you. Again, it's personal which product you go for. It's based on taste, and actually the ingredients are often made, the cheaper products are often just made of pure sort of sugar and a little bit of fancy labeling. Some of the more expensive products have maltodextrin, fructose in. It allows you to absorb up to 90 grams an hour, and they just taste a bit better. So choose wisely. It's worth trying a number of brands and trialing them out and narrowing them down to 2 or 3, and then making a decision 4 to 6 weeks out from your race. So liquids, to summarize, are great for shorter duration events, even up to a marathon, depending how long you're going to be out there. When you move to solids, you're going to be doing a lot more lower intensity, of course, so you have an ability to digest. Okay, let's talk about semi-solids, otherwise known as anything that has a thicker viscosity. So, for example, an energy gel. It's a really compact way of getting 25 to 30 grams of carbohydrates, and it only weighs about 50 to 60 grams of weight. So you can see it's really small and compact, and is quite big bang for your buck. You have a limit on how many you can have and tolerate, and that's based on trial. It's based on also the distance you're doing it for. I know most people can do 3 or 4 hours absolutely fine on gels. It's quick, fast energy. The Tour de France riders might use 2 of those an hour, plus a carb drink, plus some food. But remember, they are well-trained human beings with different physiology than we do. They can tolerate up to 120 grams an hour, but they have trained their body to be very economical, and they're different beasts. So I wouldn't base your strategy on what professional athletes are doing. That's also very important to note. I'm talking to the average athlete here, but I do consulting for professional athletes as well. So I've learned from both ends of the stick. All right, so I think what would work well for most of you is a combination of all the things I mentioned above. It's some solids, some semi-solids. The variety is key. I wouldn't, for longer distance, worry too much about The carb drink, I would mainly just rely on hydration drinks, so hypotonic, so less than 6% solution. That's just to try and keep your blood plasma volume close to homeostasis as possible. More about that on other videos around sweating, hyponatremia, and sodium loss. In summary, we need to keep it simple. Okay? I see a lot of people's race strategies and plans for ultras, and it is so complex. What happens after many hours, 6, 9, 12 hours of being out there, your cognitive function starts to go and you can't make very good decisions. So really keep it simple with plan A is your goal, and just have a B and a C plan. Because sometimes you just have to go on race course, what's available on the nutrition on the race course. So at least you know what's coming if you look at the race manual and prepare yourself. The most important thing next to keeping it simple is have a strategy. Every race actually, not just, oh, I always have gels, I always feel a bit nauseous. Well, each race has a different focus because the temperatures are generally different, times of the year, clothing plays an impact. Is it hillier? As I said earlier on, are you going to be working high intensity on the hills? Are you going to be exposed at the top of the mountain? Much colder, you burn more calories. To keep warm, you'll drink less. These are the things that you want to really practice. Okay, and remember what works for others, because you've read about it and you've been roped into buying a product, doesn't necessarily work for you. So the most important thing on this whole video, and you might have heard it before, test, test, test. Find out what really doesn't work. Narrow the band of error. This is what I normally do with my consultations. Right down to here. I'm not going to get it perfectly right the first couple of goes. And there your room for error is much smaller, and then you have strategies to work with nausea, sloshy gut, energy dip, when to bring in caffeine as well. That's another area that I'll probably do another video on, is caffeine. And this will allow you to test products that perhaps are on the race course as well. So you need to start this planning at least 8 to 12 weeks before your race or your event. If you're still confused and it's such a big topic and you'd rather someone to help you, just consult with someone that's had a lot of experience in this area, ideally with high-level athletes and some sort of nutrition background. If you're really interested, drop me a message on Instagram and we can sort something out with a consultation. Because what it'll do, it'll save you tons of time, and that is what we don't have a lot of before an event, to try and work out a simple strategy that we know we can test at least 2 or 3 times, get it right, understand which products might work for you, and remember, you don't always have to have sports nutrition. A lot of the time I make use of normal food depending where you are in the world, because we know you can always get a banana. Sometimes we can always get dates. There's always water, and there's ways of getting around hydration drinks.